For decades, we've all been handed the exact same instruction manual on how to make money. You've been given the formulas, the safe career paths, the whole step-by-step guide to a perfectly average life. But there is a massive, and I mean massive, gap between standard financial advice and how the top 1% actually operates. So in this explainer, we're going to decode a highly specific, declassified playbook. We're pulling directly from source material that maps out the hidden mental frameworks of the ultra-successful. Because right out of the gate, the text points out that traditional financial advice, it's mathematically capped. Meanwhile, the top tier is playing a totally different game, based on scalable, nonlinear wealth. We are going to break down their core internal shifts, their new rules for wealth, and the execution engines that actually get them there.
So, you might be wondering, why were you kept in the dark? Why do the standard, safe paths always seem to leave you just short of the actual freedom you were promised? Well, the source text we are analyzing today drops a profoundly disruptive truth on us. The conventional systems simply aren't designed to make you wealthy. Actually, scratch that. They were designed specifically to keep you predictable. Think about the standard 40-hour workweek for a second. It wasn't built for your individual wealth generation. It was optimized over a century ago for factory output and scheduled predictable labor. You weren't told the secrets of the top tier because the standard economic engine literally requires people to play by those predictable rules. But the individuals writing this playbook, they refuse to play that game.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're all taught the old system, right? Go to school, get a good job, safely squirrel away a little portion of your paycheck, and follow the academic theory. But the playbook aggressively contrasts this by stating that street smarts and real-time adaptability will outpace formal schooling every single time. According to the source, having the right information alone doesn't make you rich. Understanding people does. The text highlights this incredible recurring scenario where some guy armed with a perfect textbook spreadsheet gets absolutely outmaneuvered in a negotiation by someone who just intuitively understands human psychology and leverage. The reality of the market is far more brutal, but also far more rewarding than safe, sterile classroom theories. To win, you absolutely have to operate in the real world.
Which brings us right to Section 1, Reprogramming the Self, the Hidden Wealth Mindset. Because before we can even think about executing external business strategies, we have to look inward.
And this brilliantly illustrates the foundation of that massive internal shift. First up, you have to adopt the self-made mindset. The source text is brutally clear here. You must accept that absolutely no one is coming to save you. Nobody. Second, you got to think for yourself. Your path has to be entirely yours, totally unburdened by systems that were never built with your success in mind anyway. And third, you have to understand that 99% of people will doubt you. The source shares a great example. Imagine you decide to launch a highly specific digital product, and your friends and family immediately tell you to give it up and go get a real job just because it doesn't look like the traditional path they took. Because of that inevitable friction, your internal belief is non-negotiable. If you don't believe in the vision yourself, it is already dead on arrival.
Let that sink in for a second. If you don't value yourself, someone else will undervalue you. This isn't just some fluffy motivational quote to put on your wall. It is a rigid economic principle found right in our source material. This whole concept is about the economics of knowing your price, which really boils down to one critical superpower: walkaway power. The text outlines a scenario where walking away from a lowball client is actually the most profitable thing you can do long-term. By refusing to let the market price you at the lowest possible tier out of pure desperation, you maintain your premium positioning. You have to dictate your own value, and you have to be willing to walk away before anyone else even gets the chance to set your price for you.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 2, the new rules of wealth, mastering new money systems. We've got the internal mindset locked down. Now we have to examine the external market mechanics.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the core economic principle it represents. 95% of average competition is out there fighting a bloody, exhausting battle over the exact same crowded markets. But the playbook reveals this totally counterintuitive secret. The real money hides in small, overlooked spaces. The richest people simply do not compete with the masses. Instead of opening a generic dime-a-dozen restaurant like everyone else, they might build a highly specialized piece of business-to-business software just for restaurant inventory management. They find these small, highly specific spaces and they absolutely dominate them. The wealth equation here is simple, really. The riches are in the niches. Old legacy corporate structures and traditional industries, well, they pay average wages. But the unprecedented, mind-blowing wealth today is hiding in completely new architectures. The playbook emphasizes that new systems, specifically digital money and internet economies, are what actually generate massive leverage right now.
The source argues that the internet fundamentally needed its own financial architecture, and positioning yourself in front of that massive digital shift is absolutely crucial. Because when you build a digital asset, it can instantly scale to millions of users with near zero marginal cost. It's wild. That is a level of scale that old, physical, brick-and-mortar systems simply cannot mathematically match.
Zero. That is exactly how much long-term, generational wealth a standard job creates for you if you do not have equity. The source material is completely uncompromising on this point, and honestly, it just comes down to pure mathematics. When you work a standard job, you are trading finite hours for fixed dollars. You have a hard ceiling on your earning potential because, well, there are only 24 hours in a day. Add in the fact that average raises rarely outpace true inflation, and the math guarantees you are going to stay in the exact same place. You simply cannot scale a salary.
So, the crucial point is this. If you don't own something, you are spending your days building someone else's asset. Big money doesn't come from a bi-weekly paycheck. Big money comes from big plays. Think of it like renting a house versus owning one. When you rent, your monthly payments are just building the landlord's equity, right? Well, when you work without ownership, your daily labor is just building the founder's equity. The individuals at the very top don't spend their time stressing about a 3% incremental raise. They think about scale, they think about assets, and they think about ownership. Ownership always wins because equity scales infinitely. You have to think bigger.
And that takes us straight into Section 3, the execution engine, the mechanics of winning. You have the mindset, you understand the market mechanics, now let's talk about ruthless precision. The playbook makes a really fascinating distinction here regarding leverage. Operating alone is fast. You don't have to wait for anybody, you make the decisions, and you just move. But while alone is fast, together is power. The source points out that every single lone wolf eventually hits a hard revenue ceiling. You simply run out of energy and you run out of hours in the day, eventually becoming the very bottleneck that's holding your own business back. To achieve massive, exponential scale, you eventually have to transition from operating quickly on your own to building an elite, incredibly powerful team. But listen, there is a massive warning attached to scaling that team. One wrong person can slow your whole life down. Choosing your partners carefully isn't just good business advice, it is a matter of absolute survival. The source details the devastating cost of a bad hire, and it isn't just about the wasted salary, it's the momentum. A toxic hire drains your energy, they mismanage client relationships, and they require endless hours of damage control from the founders. When you're moving at high speeds toward massive scale, a single misaligned connection can destroy your momentum entirely. You have to guard your inner circle fiercely. Once the right team is in place, execution relies on 3 relentless mechanics. 1. Precision wins. Good enough is the enemy of great here. The playbook insists on improving every tiny detail, from the exact phrasing of an email to the literal millisecond load time of a web page. 2. Fail forward. In this playbook, failing isn't some huge disaster. It's just immediate data collection. You use the failure to get sharper, adjust the strategy, and deploy again immediately. 3. Action only. Talk less, move more. It's almost comical how much average people talk about their plans. Everybody has a billion-dollar app idea or a podcast they're definitely going to start next month, but almost no one actually hits record.
Most people talk, I execute. Deliver that coldly because this is the ultimate dividing line between the average and the top tier. The source really highlights this idea generation trap. It's this comfortable illusion that coming up with a good idea is the hard part. Let me tell you, it isn't. Ideas are cheap, they're abundant. The true value lies entirely in the grit, the friction, and the unglamorous everyday grind of actual execution. It isn't about the brilliant strategies you discuss over coffee, it is exclusively about what you build and put out into the real world. Which brings us to our final stop, Section 4, the ultimatum, the final reality check. This is exactly where the theory ends. Let's summarize exactly what this declassified playbook has unpacked for us today. We've seen that you must first build a bulletproof, self-made mindset that dictates its own value to the market. Second, you have to abandon those crowded, average-paying industries in favor of highly specialized niches, digital leverage, and true ownership. And third, you have to transition from just talking about it to executing with an elite, highly precise team. Look, we are simply reporting the mechanics of actual wealth generation exactly as they're presented in the source text. The market doesn't care about theoretical fairness. It only cares about results. This isn't what they teach in school for sure, but according to the people at the very top, this is how the real world actually works.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. You now know the mental frameworks of the ultra-successful. You see the actual mechanics of leverage and scale. You know exactly why the average systems are failing to produce extraordinary results for people. The question now is entirely up to you. Are you done thinking like everyone else?